So, there was a commenter, presumably someone living in the US, who didn't really understand why people would play with Nerf rather than Airsoft. Now, I think this is a perfectly fair question to ask, and it's something that most non-Nerfers, whether or not they play Airsoft, would be curious about. You'll find many Nerf communities around the world, but why don't these grown adults play more realistic shooting sports like Airsoft or Paintball? Note that some of these points are from a Singaporean context, so they may not apply to you or your local community. So let's talk about it. Why do people play Nerf? One of the big reasons is legality. You see, outside of the USA, Nerf is often popular in countries where private ownership of airsoft guns and other shooting sports is either heavily regulated or completely outlawed. Singapore is one of them. Under Singaporean law, airsoft guns, paintball markers, and air guns are considered firearms, and thus cannot be privately owned by Singaporean citizens. Only shooting clubs are allowed to acquire the license needed to purchase such recreational firearms, such as HomeTeamNS Khatib, which is home to Singapore's first and only airsoft arena, TactSim. There are also airgun ranges at SAFA clubs, which are basically recreational clubs for servicemen. And we have a number of paintball parks too, like Red Dynasty. Remember these places cause we're gonna get back to them. You don't need a license to buy a Nerf Retaliator off the shelf of a local department store. You don't even need it for hobby grade blasters like CDAS or worker blasters. The new Guns, Explosives and Weapons Control Bill even exempts the 3D printing of Nerf blasters from the government regulation. Frankly, I don't see airsoft regulations here as a huge loss. Singapore is a small country with one of the greatest population densities in the world. We simply don't have many spaces for airsoft to be played safely. Plus, if airsoft restrictions in Singapore were to be removed tomorrow, I don't trust the average Singaporean to be responsible enough not to screw it up. Singaporean society has a large enough population of jerks abusing modern conveniences and technologies, like e-scooters and bicycle sharing. All it takes is for some jackass to start shooting at passerbys, and then it will screw it all over. Oh wait. Another country with similarly strict laws on airsoft is Australia. Most of the states and territories like Queensland and New South Wales ban the importation and ownership of airsoft weapons. Recently, their laws on foam blasters have been lightened, allowing for the sale of foam blasters that can hit 70 FPS and above, including rifle blasters. Australia is also known for having a pretty substantial ultra-stock scene, by which I mean blasters that can hit 200 plus FPS. I'm sure there's other countries with very similar cases, it's just that Singapore and Australia are the most notable ones. Send a comment down below if your country is one of them. Conversely, with certain exceptions like America, Nerf and Nerf modifications are less popular in countries where private ownership of airsoft guns is legal, such as in Russia and Japan. So long as the airsoft weapons meet those countries', respective legal limits for muzzle energy, i.e. how hard they shoot. Okay, I know I said just now, but I'm kinda surprised there isn't any Japanese companies making anime, foam blasters. Like, hey, Tasha Blast. Tasha Blasters. Okay, maybe that's the only way BOOMco can come back. You can send me a consultation fee, Mattel. Legality is one thing, but even if airsoft or paintball is available to you, there is another issue. Please, have me. Number 2. Cost. A single booking for a game at TactSim is 1 hour long. Here is their pricing structure. This is per person. While we love to meme about how Nerf nickels and dimes us constantly, there's no denying that the Nerf hobby is easily the cheapest shooting sport around. Look, I'm not going all the way to Khatib to pay $45 for a 1 hour experience. And the paintball centers aren't that much better. For example, look at the Red Dynasty Paintball Park's website. The booking packages are a bit too expensive for my taste. And I didn't really care for the airgun ranges at the SAFA clubs at all. For other countries where airsoft isn't restricted, a quick Google search tells me that the cost for an airsoft starter loadout is in the 200 to 300 US dollar range. A similar argument can be made for paintball. With foam blasters, I could spend that much money on, a blaster and maybe some extra ammunition, and I'm set. I don't have to, buy more of that stuff. Forget Nerf Elite darts. Go online and buy some darts or waffle heads or a cheap pack of 300 off-brand darts. Also, the ammo is reusable. BB pellets cannot be reused easily, and paintball rounds are single use. Because of the lower power, eye protection is pretty much the minimum personal protection you need. Right now I can get some rival vision gear for $11 on Amazon, and you can find a variety of other safety glasses for a similar price. Obviously, modding reduces this to an extent, and some hobbyists throw it out completely, but purely by the numbers, Nerf is just much cheaper than other shooting sports. Cost also ties into point number 3. Accessibility, which can mean a couple of things. Firstly, Nerf wars can be basically held anywhere, whether impromptu or organized events. Parks, indoor halls, churches, etc. They're less likely to cause accidental injuries or damage property. So long as you don't try to be a little shit, people generally don't have issues with Nerf wars in public spaces. Outside of private property, playing Airsoft and Paintball is generally only allowed on designated playing fields, obviously for public safety and prevention of damage to public property. For some, this can mean having to travel a long distance from home, while carrying several kilos worth of airsoft gear and weapons. Secondly, post-game cleanups are generally easier with Nerf wars, since darts are bigger and easier to pick up than BBs. Unless, for example, everyone's using biodegradable pellets. In this case, it really depends on your individual circumstance. Another thing is that all sorts of people can play Nerf. These are, after all, toys meant for children. But that doesn't mean that only children can play them. Combine the sub 100 FPS stock performance with the affordability of foam blasters, and you'll find that there is a wide range of appeal, especially for matters of safety and convenience. Less power means less pain, which has more appeal and means less strict requirements for safety. Speaking of which, that also means more convenience for the kinds of clothes that we can wear. Which is great for us because Singapore is a hot and humid hellhole, and the editor is a sweaty bitch. I wish that were figurative. It is not. All you really need is eye and/or face protection, even for games on the higher end of the FPS range, like Rival or Dartzone Pro, unless you are reaching for ultra stout levels. Nerf wars are simply more convenient and safer to hold than other shooting sports. If you're willing to sacrifice the power of Airsoft, this is actually a pretty attractive proposition. But choosing Nerf over Airsoft doesn't mean you have to completely sacrifice power. By far, the biggest reason people love Nerf is modding. A major part of the fun for Nerfers is ignoring the warning labels engraved by Hasbro to avoid lawsuits and tinkering with their blasters. It's much like cooking or gardening or DIY, or more aptly building Lego. There's something quite enjoyable about pulling these toys apart and putting them back together. Modding has existed for a long time, as early as N-Strike's debut in 2003 and possibly before that. A lot of adult Nerfers were kids back then, messing around with their toys to squeeze out as much power as they can from whatever scraps they had. The low price of regular store-bought blasters gives room to spend a bit more money on upgrades. Just take a visit on our Nerf and you can find so many different creations. Air tank powered cannons, master keys, from faithful replicas to insane integrations, or stupid fun things like this cannon. And let's not forget visual customizations. There's creative paint jobs, body kits, and some Nerfers even create replicas of our favorite fictional weapons, like this guy's Doom BFG. And thanks to the introduction of increasingly affordable 3D printers, Nerfers are now designing their own blasters, some of whom are even making businesses out of it. Take Luke Goodman for example, better known on YouTube as Out of Darts, who designed the Jupiter rifle pistol and co-designed the little rocket attachment, among various other designs. Plus, mechanical modifications and aesthetic customizations are generally not regulated by law, even in Singapore and Australia. With Nerf, you can use your artistic and/or engineering skills to create something cool or wacky. It's a sort of freedom that you cannot accomplish with Airsoft or Paintball, nor is it as prevalent in those sports. At least not without getting on a watch list, or just draining your wallet. People love Nerf for the creativity it allows, which is appealing for bored and creative engineers with sticky fingers. No, wait, no, ah! Oh! The fifth and possibly most underrated point that you might find subjective is playstyle. Nerf blasters play very differently from other shooting sports. Most obviously, they don't shoot very far or fast. The standard velocity for regular Nerf darts is 70 FPS, while the dart competitors achieve anywhere from 80 to 100. When blasters are angled at 30 degrees, you can expect a maximum range of about 22 meters or so. The effective range, i.e. shooting level to the ground and seeing how far the dart flies horizontally before falling, is like about 10 to 15 meters. However, the relatively low speed and limited range creates an emphasis on getting up close and personal. It also allows players to try and dodge darts. But it's not just about power and range. There is a diverse assortment of foam blasters with different firing internals, priming mechanisms, and loading systems. You have the basics like the fast-firing electronic fire blasters, and then the slower shooting pump action and slide action springers. Then you have single-shot pistols, compressed air systems, lever action, one-hand revolvers, shotguns, chain-fed rotary blasters, ball hopper blasters, dart hopper blasters. Then there's goofy shit like mega blasters, rocket launchers. There's bows and arrows, swords and shields, road socks, and Nerf foam objects used as throwable secondaries. And then Beret, the Mad Lad, uses bananas. Ammo capacity is limited compared to other shooting sports. 15 dart magazines, 50 round drums, etc. So there's not much spam firing in a cheeky location. It's because of this that you can even collect spent darts to reload during a game, not just between rounds, during the game itself. Plus the lower and thereby safer velocities allow for more unique game modes like humans versus zombies. This factor is ultimately subjective. Maybe you prefer machine gun like pellet sprayers over quirky manual priming mechanics. But while the playstyle of the Nerf hobby is a bit slower paced, it provides a unique variety and sense of aggression. Let me be clear that I'm not trying to trash other shooting sports, particularly Airsoft. Comparing Nerf to something like Airsoft would be like comparing Splatoon to Arma. Of course they're significantly different, but there's nothing wrong with preferring either one over the other, or liking both for different reasons. But by now, if you still don't get why people are loyal to foam flinging, consider this perspective. Nerf has been making blasters for a very long time. The N-Strike name and ecosystem dates back to 2003. The current standard dart format dates back even further. A lot of adult Nerfers were kids back then, playing with friends at the parks and tinkering their blasters at home. But as the days go by, and then months, and then years, they begin to grow up. And so do the responsibilities, piling up alongside new priorities in life. But the hobby calls like home, a familiar and nostalgic place. So when they find the time and save aside some money, they work on the hobby that made up their childhood, not just to relive that short memory through rose-tinted lenses, but to realize a childhood dream, turning their toys into the blasters that they envisioned as kids. And what's so wrong about that?